Dane was born 5.5 weeks early, but seemed totally fine. So he was going to stay in the NICU until he hit 36 weeks. He was eating great, breathing fine, didn't really need any support. The day before he was going to go home, he started seeming sick. And they did a blood test and found out that he was experiencing liver failure.
Upon arriving at Stanford, I was an all-hands-on-deck situation with anywhere from, nurses to attending physicians and fellows trying to diagnose the problem.
There was probably 5 or 6 people just around his bed at any given time. Because he was bleeding to death, there were people taking turns actually holding pressure on where they put the IV lines in to stop them from bleeding.
Eventually we had to control it. The lungs improved, brain improved, everything improved, but the liver still continued to fail. And that's when the liver transplant came into place.
Not only was he way smaller than the average liver transplant patient, he was on dialysis, he was extremely sick. His bones were extremely fragile. The day before we got the call that he actually got a liver, we also found out that 8 of his bones were broken. Everywhere IVs were in his body, the bones were broken right through. The dialysis that he was on was actually stripping the nutrients from his bones. He was so fragile that we'd never even picked him up, yet we were going to bring him into this really intense surgery.
He was in the operating room for 8 or 9 hours. As he came out, we were relieved, and everyone felt a sense of gratitude, but also just relief.
Fortunately, in this institution, we have a lot of experience dealing with small kids, so we have the expertise and the confidence that we can make the technical part of the transplant successful. From there on, I think that the team effort of intensivists, hepatologists, infectious disease, and everybody working together, we were able to have a good outcome.
Unfortunately, after the liver transplant, his kidneys never recovered. The medication that he needed for his liver is actually really bad for your kidneys and can kill your kidneys. So his kidneys never came back, so they said as soon as he reaches 10 kilograms, we can think about doing the kidney transplant.
Combination of his blood type, size, and then the sensitivity to other blood types or tissue made it extremely difficult to identify a match.
We'd heard that kids who were transplanted by the time they were 3 could catch up developmentally, and so our anxiety was building as Dane was approaching his 3rd birthday.
We received word that Stanford had identified a match for Dane on April 7th, which is the day before his 3rd birthday. Couldn't have been a better birthday present. The complicating factor for Dane was that he had a vascular system that was quite compromised, and therefore there were really only a handful of veins that were healthy enough to attach to the donor kidney. Dr. Concepcion and Dr. Gallo explained to us that the procedure would probably be fairly high risk and perhaps novel in its approach.
If you look at the probabilities of this child getting a kidney, it's very low. Mostly having everything thrombosed, having the circulation being a huge challenge. Having a liver transplant, the area or the vein that we could have used is very scarred down. If you would look at the numbers, we would say this has very low probability. For Dane, he was 100% for us. We needed to find a solution, and we found a solution with our team for him. We take not just a straightforward transplant, we take the ones that look impossible, the ones that looked all the challenge, and with our team working together, we're able to do wonderful surgery and care for these children to be able to give them a possibility of having a transplant. Dane is an example that a team that can dream solutions together, we can solve the problems.
They were able to pull off what seemingly was a groundbreaking procedure and technique for transplanting the kidney. The early indications were that everything was functioning, very, very well, and it was really as good of an outcome as we could have ever hoped for.
Dane is doing really, really well. I was under the impression that he would be in the hospital for, 4 to 6 weeks just because he's so medically complicated, but he was out of the hospital in 10 days. Before the transplant, he never talked or walked. 6 weeks after coming home from the hospital, he started walking for the first time, and since then he's been walking, running everywhere.
We are extremely grateful to the broader team that number not in the single digits, but more likely the dozens and hundreds that have supported Dane and our family at Lucile Packard and hold everyone in the highest regard possible. These people are like family to us and will always occupy a very special place in our hearts.